balance. The streets of Iran have become killing fields where opposition leaders say
are feared to have been killed in Iran as harrowing accounts emerge from inside the country.
Watch this.
What the Iranian regime is saying publicly is quite different from the messages they are sending.
He is now set to be the first demonstrator officially executed by the regime.
Very carefully, I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past,
in which Jews in Israel are falsely branded as white oppressors.
What's really burning in Iran during these first days of the new year? And why does the whole world have to turn and look at Tehran with a real chill running down their spine? Iran's streets are shaking with protests, gunfire, blood being spilled, and threats that never let up. Hot news hits every hour. The tension keeps climbing. The government is tightening its grip, and hope is being pushed right to the edge. Time feels like it's speeding up, squeezing everything into one suffocating point, where chaos isn't just a warning anymore. It's happening right now. Do we feel that same unease spreading beyond the Middle East borders? What's going on in Iran isn't just one single political flare-up. It feels more like a serious warning straight from above about a dark time starting to open up for all of humanity. Before we dive into every detail, let's just pause for a second and leave a prayer in the comments, like a quiet mark of faith, while the storm waves keep rising higher. Now come along with me as we go deeper into the full story of these events and the Bible messages that are being woven in so cleverly through every step. We'll start right away. Bloodshed and violence on Iran's streets. A warning of hard times and chaos. Are Iran's streets heading into a bloody spiral with no way out? Tear gas, sharp explosions, and streaks of fire tearing through the night made Tehran's big avenues look unrecognizable for a moment. In the middle of the panicked crowds, we saw people falling, ambulances stuck in gridlock, and emergency lights sweeping across pale, terrified faces. That opening scene throws you right into the heart of the storm. No beating around the bush, no looking away, like an urgent news bulletin the whole world has to hear. Starting in the last days of December 2025, years of built-up tension inside Iran suddenly exploded. Pressure from making ends meet, a crashing currency, limited freedom, and long-lasting hardship pushed crowds into the streets. Tehran became the main hotspot, but the wave quickly spread to many other big cities, creating a fast-moving chain of events that local authorities could no longer control. With the internet flickering on and off, information breaking up, viral videos showed chases, gunfire, and streets turning into makeshift battle lines. During the peak days, casualty numbers came in all over the place, showing how messy and unclear the situation really was. Hospitals reported being completely overwhelmed. Morgues had to expand on an emergency basis, and rescue teams moved through dangerous conditions. One international report, quoting a major American news source, said medical facilities recorded hundreds of deaths in just one urban area, along with thousands more injured, needing urgent care. This was mentioned only once in the stream of updates, like a single reference point in a flood of overlapping information. Other figures released by organizations and opposition channels were much higher, but independent verification remains very difficult when connections are restricted and access to the ground is uneven. What we can say for sure is that the violence is speeding up, spreading wider, and the human cost is real and growing. On major roads, burned vehicles became barriers, making it hard to get the wounded out. At some symbolic public squares, crowds would scatter, then gather again several times in the same day, raising the risk of things getting even worse. Right in the middle of this flood of news reports, the Bible is mentioned as a reference point, suggesting the chaos isn't random. Matthew 24:9-10 says, "Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and killed, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. Then many will turn away from the faith, betray, and hate each other." The passage isn't meant to force one interpretation, but it brings to mind images of spreading trouble, where violence and division come as results of deep, underlying breaks. Back on the ground, the pace of events doesn't let the world just stand by and watch. Some roads are blocked off, security forces are everywhere, and crowds keep shifting where they gather. In the days that followed, reports noted more casualties, while official and unofficial numbers kept going up and down. This situation creates an information gap, where rumors and facts get mixed together, making the overall picture even more confused. On another level, the Bible appears again as a reminder of the loss of peace. Revelation 6-4 describes, "Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. And he was given a large sword." This symbolic picture is often used to talk about a time when people push themselves into conflict, when fragile order gets pulled out of everyday life. Careful observers point out that every crisis has its own specific causes: economic, social, governance, and needs to be looked at with real on-the-ground data. Still, the fact that violence broke out at the same time in many hotspots, spreading so quickly, raises questions about how much strain city systems can take before they break. When a city of over 9 million people starts shaking, the ripple effects don't stop at the national border. In that context, another Bible reference comes up, this one tied to history and place names. Ezekiel 38-5 says, "Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets." The old names that show up in religious texts are often used as a way to think about the role of certain lands in times of big change, rather than as a literal map of events. A common counter-argument says, this is purely an internal conflict, and there's no need to attach any larger meaning beyond politics and society. That view makes sense when focusing on the immediate causes. But others argue that history has seen many events that started out looking local, only to later show global impact. The wise approach is to avoid rushing to conclusions while not ignoring the clear signs of escalation that are happening right now. At the crossroads between hard facts and deeper reflection, what stands out most is still the human suffering. Lines of people looking for shelter, hospitals stretched to the limit, families torn apart. These are the same details that repeat in every major crisis. No blame is being assigned here, just a clear record of the reality that's unfolding fast and with serious consequences. As news updates keep coming in hour by hour, the Iran story opens up like a chapter that hasn't finished yet. The blood on the central streets may calm down, or it may spread in ways no one can predict. One thing is certain, the world is watching closely, because every shift in this hotspot carries aftershocks that go far beyond its borders. And the answer to that opening question is still ahead of us. Warning about war between Iran, the US, and Israel. Predictions and rumors of war. The tension in the Middle East is burning hotter by the hour. Military and diplomatic signals keep crashing into each other, pushing the region right up to a very thin line. These aren't distant warnings anymore. The atmosphere right now shows that the conflict has moved into a new, faster rhythm. Every move carries weight that goes far beyond any one country's borders, and you can really feel the unease spreading. After the clashes that went on last year, relations between Iran, the United States, and Israel keep getting tested. Communication channels still exist, but at the same time we hear tough statements stressing self-defense and core security interests. The mix of talking and deterrence makes everything hard to predict, because every announcement can be seen as a warning shot to the other side. According to several major news outlets, Iranian officials recently made it clear again, any military action against their territory or key interests will get a matching response. On the other side, US officials are discussing different ways to protect their forces and allies in the region, while stressing they want to avoid unwanted escalation. Israel has also raised its readiness level, stepping up surveillance and defense against unpredictable scenarios. All this news is coming fast and thick, giving the feeling that the situation is sitting in a ready-to-go-off state. These events don't happen by themselves. They trigger a chain reaction. One diplomatic statement leads to military adjustments. A security meeting brings a new warning message, and together they thicken the cloud of distrust. In this setting, we see how fragile the balance really is. The goal of preventing war can both keep the peace and accidentally push tensions even higher. Other countries around the world are watching closely and giving careful advice, from calling for restraint at international meetings to getting ready to protect their own citizens. Some act as go-betweens, pushing for talks to lower the risks, while others strengthen defenses in the region to be prepared for anything. No one is openly blaming anyone directly. Instead, we hear balanced statements about security and stability, showing shared worry about how far the consequences could spread if things get out of control. After all these layers of information, the Bible gets mentioned as a familiar warning about the historical pattern of trouble. Matthew 24:6-7 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." The passage isn't pointing to one specific event. It's a reminder that wars and rumors of wars always go together in times of big upheaval. Back to today's reality, analysts point out that every military decision sits inside a much bigger picture, where the effects don't stay in just one area. The possible scenarios range from controlled deterrence to unexpected escalation, and the chance of miscalculation gets brought up a lot. Even a small misunderstanding could start a chain reaction that's hard to stop, making all the restraint efforts very fragile. On social media, the debate is exploding in all directions. Some people support a tough stand, believing strength will prevent conflict. Others are afraid of a wider war and call for more talking. There are also voices criticizing the confrontational approach from every side. All these different opinions exist side by side, showing how divided world public opinion is about this unpredictable hotspot. In that picture, what do you see as the priority? Deterrence to keep order, or dialogue to reduce risk? The warnings keep coming through other Bible passages too. Revelation 9:14-15 says, "Say to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates to kill 1/3 of mankind." Even though it's symbolic, this passage often gets mentioned to highlight the huge scale and deep consequences of war once it slips beyond human control. Another historical geographic connection shows up in Ezekiel 38:2-3. "Son of man, set your face toward Gog and prophesy against him." The fact that these ancient lands keep coming up in religious texts makes many people think about how these same trouble spots keep returning over the centuries. The threats, military moves, and diplomatic reactions form the background music of ongoing instability. The Bible, in this role, doesn't condemn anyone. It simply reminds us that war and rumors of war have been talked about for a long time, as signs that come with periods of great change. Will the sides manage to stay within the limits of deterrence and avoid crossing the line? Or will one link break and throw the region into a new spiral? The warning bell has rung. What happens next is still ahead, where every decision could shape the future for the whole world. Call for regime change and the return of the exiled prince, a sign of kingdoms falling and something new rising. A bombshell piece of news broke through all the chaos. A name most people thought belonged to the past suddenly came back, bringing a wave of hope that spread fast across social media and the streets of Iran. In all those videos being shared everywhere, the image of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled prince, shines through like a beam of light cutting through decades of darkness. You can almost feel the heartbeat of a historic moment happening right there on our screens. After almost half a century living away from his homeland, Reza Pahlavi spoke out from Washington, D.C. in mid-January 2026, right as protests were spreading wide and Iran's power structure was facing a serious test. His statements focused on keeping the country together, building a secular system, and a peaceful transition without bloodshed. Many international news outlets carried his words carefully, showing just how sensitive the moment really was. Reactions came quickly from all sides, from Iranians living abroad to groups inside the country looking for a unifying symbol. Online, the old lion and sun flag started showing up again at gatherings from Europe to North America, stretching across thousands of miles. It felt like a shared memory waking up. We're not just seeing a call to action, we're seeing an emotional connection that crosses borders. Along with the support, there were also cautious and careful voices. Some say real change is still far off because the current power structure still holds all the key control tools. Those analyses point to the region's history and past unfinished changes, painting a mixed picture where hope and doubt live side by side. In the middle of all these mixed opinions, the Bible gets mentioned as a symbolic key to understanding. Daniel 2:44 says, "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will crush and put an end to all those other kingdoms." The verse isn't pointing to one specific person. It speaks to the bigger pattern of how earthly kingdoms rise and fall when structures that seemed so solid finally start to shake. More footage keeps spreading, showing crowds chanting for change while old symbols come back as reminders of a time that's gone. Those images don't decide the outcome by themselves, but they show a deep shift in people's thinking, where faith in permanent power begins to crack. We're watching that process happen step by step. Going deeper, the Bible throws another layer of meaning on this moment. Daniel 7:14 reads, "Dominion, glory, and a kingdom were given to him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away." The passage stresses that all earthly power has a time limit, and every rise or fall is just one link in a much larger flow. Skeptics say Reza Pahlavi's appearance is only symbolic and hard to turn into real change. Still, social observers point out that symbols can sometimes be the spark, bringing scattered frustrations together. When millions of people start looking toward the same figure, the power structure has to face a new reality, even if the final outcome is still anyone's guess. The Bible gets brought up one more time as the final lens for this moment. Revelation 11:15 says, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever." Those words don't predict specific politics. They simply state the ultimate rule. Every kingdom is temporary compared to an eternal order. Looking at the big picture, waves of support, pushback, and hope are all tangled together, creating a very special moment in modern Iranian history. No quick conclusions, no final judgment, just one clear fact. What's happening now has shaken the feeling of long-term stability. And as the exiled prince keeps showing up on the news and in people's feeds, the story remains wide open, like a door that hasn't closed yet, where old collapse and new possibilities exist side by side, waiting for the next decisive moment. The rise of anti-Semitism in Europe and America, a warning about the persecution of God's people and the time of great tribulation. A quiet wave of hatred has moved beyond normal political arguments and spilled into everyday public spaces, from college campuses to busy neighborhoods, creating an atmosphere that's hard to ignore. Images, slogans, and actions targeting Jewish communities are showing up more often in international news, and we can clearly feel the tension spreading day by day. This wave didn't just appear out of nowhere. After years of ongoing conflict in the Middle East, extreme feelings have been amplified through social media and street protests, making the line between criticizing policy and ethnic hatred more and more blurry. Security and social monitoring reports show anti-Semitic incidents rising steadily year after year, creating a troubling trend in the 2025-2026 period. The numbers are starting to paint a clearer picture. According to well-known news sources like CNN and CBN News, threats, vandalism, and attacks on Jewish facilities in the U.S. have climbed into the thousands each year, reaching from the East Coast to the West Coast, thousands of miles apart. In Europe, monitoring groups have recorded similar incidents in France, Germany, Italy, and the UK, showing this isn't just a local problem. On college campuses, many universities have seen tense protests where signs and chants go far beyond policy debate, leaving Jewish students feeling unsafe. In public places, graffiti, smashed synagogues, and physical assaults have been reported in local news, showing a shift from words to real actions. You can sense this change has been happening quietly but steadily. Sociologists point out that hatred often flares up strongly during times of global instability, when fear and anger need someone to blame. Some believers and faith leaders see it as more than just a familiar social cycle. It reflects a deeper moral decline, when people find it easy to blame an entire community instead of facing the real root causes. The big question is whether society is awake enough to stop this slide. From that viewpoint, the Bible doesn't come as comfort here. It comes as a serious warning against hatred. Revelation 12:13-17 describes, "When the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the son. The dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep the commandments of God." This passage places persecution in the context of a spiritual conflict, where the hatred isn't just aimed at people, but at God's own plan. The data keeps showing how widespread this problem has become. European security reports note sharp increases in incidents after every major international conflict peak, revealing a clear link between geopolitical events and social reactions. Those dry numbers point to one reality: hatred can cross borders as fast as any other crisis. On a deeper level, the Bible keeps warning nations that choose to stand against Israel. Zechariah 12:3 says, "In that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured." These words don't condemn individuals one by one. They show the consequences for nations and societies that let hatred guide their actions. Some people argue this is only political, tied to debates about policy and interests. But when violent acts against religious communities rise at the same time in places thousands of miles apart, the just politics explanation starts to feel weak. Do you see this timing as pure coincidence, or as a sign of something much deeper? The Bible continues to serve as a final warning against pride and forgetting our roots. Romans 11:18 cautions, "Do not boast over those branches. If you do boast, remember this: you do not support the root, but the root supports you." These words remind us that the life and prosperity of nations are never separate from the root God has established. Looking at the big picture, this rising anti-Semitism is exposing a serious moral crack in modern society. No need to rush to judgment. The facts show the escalation is real, and the potential consequences are very large, both human and spiritual. And as the hatred keeps spreading quietly, one question still hangs in the air. Will the world wake up in time to stop this spiral? Or is this only the beginning of a much fiercer time of persecution waiting ahead? Call to prayer and spiritual preparation for Iran, a reminder about the end times and the salvation of the nations. Right now, with news reports flooding the screen and the name Iran showing up again and again amid all the tension, the question isn't just which way the politics will go anymore. The real question is, in the middle of all this uncertainty, where are you placing your hope? From many different continents, calls are going out, not with signs or slogans, but with something quieter: prayer. This isn't the voice of one country or one group. It's more like a wave spreading across borders and differences, reaching deep into people's hearts amid the global chaos. In the early days of 2026, Christian communities across North America, Europe, and many other places started mentioning Iran in their gatherings, prayer times, and unity messages. They say it in pretty much the same way. No predictions about the outcome, no forecasts of events, just focusing on lifting up prayers for protection, for hope, and for the people living under this long pressure. In the middle of all this, can you feel why a faraway country like Iran has become the focus of so many prayers around the world? Since late 2025, the protests and social tensions in Iran have caught the close attention of many humanitarian and religious organizations. By mid-January 2026, official calls to prayer came from international Christian networks, stressing support for local believers and for society as a whole. Transform Iran announced they are preparing Bibles, training materials, and ministry teams ready to help if the door for spiritual outreach opens wider, from the United States to several European countries. In their public statements and shares, leaders from International Christian Concern and Global Christian Relief clearly listed the main prayer points: safety for the faith community, wisdom for leaders, and peace for ordinary people. On platforms like Facebook and YouTube, you can see wave after wave of videos showing group prayer gatherings, reaching what looks like millions of people joining from different time zones. Looking at that picture, doesn't it feel like more than just scattered reactions to the news, more like a true worldwide movement? After those facts, the Bible often comes up as the key that helps many people make sense of what's happening at a deeper level. Matthew 24-14 says, "This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." When people talk about the gospel in connection with Iran, quite a few see it as a sign that the message of salvation is reaching places once thought to be completely closed. This view isn't about setting dates. It's about noticing the process that crosses cultural and political barriers. From that angle, prayer isn't just an emotional response. It's part of a bigger flow in the history of faith. Revelation 7-9-10 describes, "After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. And they cried out in a loud voice, 'Salvation belongs to our God.'" That picture of every nation often connects to places going through hard times. And Iran is seen as part of that big picture, not separate, but joined with the rest of humanity. Of course, not everyone agrees with this way of looking at things. Some say prayer can't really change complicated political systems, and that real social change has to come through dialogue, policies, and concrete actions. That argument is made carefully, pointing to what's practical and what history has shown in modern times. Still, those who support prayer often point back to moments when big changes happened alongside quiet spiritual movements. They mention examples from the 20th century, when faith communities kept praying through division and pressure, and then saw unexpected changes afterward. In Iran's case, the growth of house church groups over many years is often given as proof of spiritual life, even when outside conditions are tough. Psalm 122-6 says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure." Even though this verse is about a different city, the principle of praying for peace in tense places is widely used in faith thinking. One thing that stands out is how calm and neutral most of these prayer calls for Iran sound. They don't point fingers or condemn anyone. Instead, they focus on people, on the need for protection and hope in the midst of unrest. That gentle tone actually gets the attention of many outside the faith community too. They see it more as an effort to bring people together spiritually than as something confrontational. In a world where information often gets pushed to extremes, what do you think this gentle approach says? When you step back and look at the whole picture, prayer seems to be placed as a kind of inner preparation, not preparation for conflict, but preparation for the possibility of change, for opening hearts to whatever may come next. Many believers feel moments like this often come right before major turning points in spiritual history, times when hope and challenge walk hand in hand. And so the quiet final question still hangs in the air. If millions of prayers are being lifted for Iran all at the same time, what might open up ahead? Will it be a door to healing and unity, or just a calm before even deeper changes arrive? The answer isn't clear yet, but that very waiting is what keeps so many watching. With hope still alive, the role of Christian leaders in social change, a forecast about the growing divide between light and darkness. While prayers still rise up like a lifeline holding on to hope, society is showing sharper contrasts. On one side, faith wanting to step into public life, On the other, concern about where belief ends and power begins, with religious leaders showing up more and more in social debates. Have you ever wondered what's really being tested behind those steps? Early in 2026, in California, pastors taking part in political and social life became a widely talked about topic. Some people see it as a moral effort to stand against what they view as injustice or hatred. Others express caution, feeling faith should stay separate from the arena of power. Both views exist side by side, neither one fully winning out, creating a long and complicated discussion. In that setting, Pastor Chayan, who joined the race for California governor back in April 2025, gets mentioned as a clear example of religious leaders moving into politics. His main message focuses on opposing anti-Semitic attitudes in schools and public life. Reports from 2025 tell of many conferences and forums held, including a gathering in Jerusalem with about 1,000 pastors, to talk about how to respond to this issue in our globalized world. Supporters say it's necessary for Christian leaders to speak out openly against trends they believe go against universal moral values. They stress that staying silent can sometimes mean missing the chance to protect vulnerable people. On the other hand, more careful voices question whether this risks splitting society even more, especially when religious messages get understood differently in a world of many beliefs. So, between these two views, do you lean toward seeing this as a moral duty or a social risk? Online sites have collected numbers showing how divided people are. Some internet surveys find support for religious leaders in politics hovering around a bit more than half of those asked, while the rest express worry or disagreement. Social media activity, with hundreds of thousands of comments and shares, shows this topic isn't just interesting to religious groups. It draws much wider public attention, going beyond one state or one group of voters. Online discussions clearly reflect a wide range of opinions. Some welcome pastors challenging messages they see as extreme, viewing it as a sign of moral courage. At the same time, others warn that tying faith too closely to a specific political agenda might weaken the core spiritual message. Though some exchanges get heated, overall the tone stays focused on questions of boundaries and responsibility rather than final judgments. In this polarized time, the Bible is often quoted as the final measure to weigh the roles of light and darkness. Ephesians 5:11-14 says, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Everything exposed by the light becomes visible. Wake up, O sleeper." This passage is usually understood as a call to clearly discern, not to condemn people, but to recognize systems or behaviors seen as far from the truth. Then Revelation 18:4 stresses, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues." Many religious leaders interpret this as a warning against blending too deeply with structures they believe are decaying, whether political, economic, or cultural. The message isn't about attacking specific individuals. It calls for a clear moral stand. Another verse often mentioned is 2 Corinthians 6:14. "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" In today's context, this verse is seen as a basic principle, setting a spiritual boundary between opposing values rather than judging any particular society. Skeptics argue that politics and faith can hardly go together without hurting each other. Still, those who disagree often point to Bible figures like Daniel, who kept his faith while serving in a powerful government, to show that believers can be in public roles without becoming corrupted. Recent work by Religious Civil Alliances is also mentioned as proof that it's possible to make real social impact while keeping a gentle tone. All in all, the role of Christian leaders in this period stands out more as a warning sign than a victory announcement. It warns of a growing divide between opposing value systems and the pressure on every person and community to decide where they stand, not to condemn, but to realize that complete neutrality can sometimes carry its own consequences. So, will the light being spoken of grow strong enough to guide society's direction? Or will the darkness of division keep spreading in the years ahead? That tug of war hasn't ended yet, and it's exactly because things are still unsettled that many keep watching with careful hearts. Looking back over the whole journey we've been through, those 6 pieces that seemed so scattered are now coming together into one clear picture. From the big upheavals in Iran, the spreading wave of hatred, the opposing voices in society, all the way to prayers being lifted up around the world and faith leaders stepping forward in open debate, none of it stands alone. They weave together, bump into each other, and shine light on one another, like wave after wave, telling us a very important moment is getting close. The Bible described times like these not to scare us, but to help us see the bigger plan that's at work. Matthew 24:6-8 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, but all this is just the beginning of birth pains." What we're seeing today matches that warning so clearly. Like the sound of drums beating faster right before the curtain of history comes down. Even in all the chaos, the Bible doesn't just talk about things falling apart, it also promises a way through. Hebrews 12:27-28 tells us that everything that can be shaken will eventually pass away, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. When earthly systems, powers, and beliefs start to tremble, what stays standing is the kingdom that can never be moved, the place where real faith becomes our solid rock. So the main message running through all of this isn't fear or running away. It's about staying awake and alert. Luke 21:28 says, "When these things begin to take place, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." With all the heavy news coming at us every day, we're called to keep our hearts calm, not let fear take the lead, but let faith light up the way we see things and the way we live. If anything I've shared today touches something deep inside you, feel free to leave a prayer, a thought, or a question in the comments. Every honest word is a mark of someone searching and hoping it won't get lost in all the noise of the world. And if you feel these messages should reach more people, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any reminder about faith and staying awake. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end, and I pray that you and your family are always kept safe in the peace of God. Amen.
Olha isso, nossa, que coisa louca. Look.
Luz estranha aqui no Maranhão, pessoal. Olha aqui, ó, apareceu na minha região. Consegui filmar.
Is this world sliding fast toward a point of no return? When the sky shakes, fire breaks out in the middle of freezing ice, strange lights hang in the air, a feeling of chaos spreads across the whole planet, like the heartbeat of time is racing and running out. What started happening in early 2026 is no longer quiet. From the icy wilds of Alaska, the thick jungles of Brazil, to the highlands of Scotland, 10 strange events showed up all at once. Judgment, fire, mysterious pillars of light, doors in the sky, glowing orbs like messengers, nature moving out of control. All of it was caught on video, shared everywhere, so we can't just look away. Science talks about climate and magnetic fields, but a lot of these signs go way beyond the usual explanations. We're standing right in front of a very serious warning. Can you feel that uneasiness too? If you still have faith in your heart, please leave a prayer down below. And now, let's go straight to the most shocking image together. 1. Fire of judgment burning on the frozen peak. On the still white snow, a flame swallows up the space, melting away everything we thought we knew about nature's order. In that moment, we realize the peace we've had all this time was just a thin, fragile shell. No black smoke, no loud explosion, just pure fire, burning alone in the freezing cold, strong enough to leave anyone who sees it frozen in shock and awe. This was caught on video at the top of Denali, Alaska, the highest mountain in North America, about 20,310 feet tall, covered in dozens of feet of snow all year round. A place always seen as the perfect symbol of total cold now becomes the stage for something completely opposite. Videos spreading online show a flame nearly 100 feet high, burning steadily for hours, yet the ice right around it stays almost untouched. No collapse, no melting. That strange contradiction makes it impossible to brush off as some random accident. Joel 2:30 wrote about this long ago as a frightening sign. I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. When you put that ancient picture next to this pillar of fire on top of ice, it doesn't feel like a simple coincidence anymore. It feels more like a warning sent long ago that is only now taking shape. People online quickly split into two sides. Some say it's just methane gas released from the permafrost because of climate change, like the ice fire that's appeared in Siberia before. Others talk about a rare chemical reaction or some camera lens trick making the light look bigger. They explain it carefully, sounding scientific and reasonable. But even the people who believe the natural explanation admit the fire has no smoke, doesn't spread, and doesn't leave the usual burn marks behind. Revelation 8-7 paints an even harsher picture. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. When fire appears in the middle of ice, not to warm anything, but to show power, the warning feeling starts to outweigh every calm explanation. Isaiah 66-15 drives the message home even deeper. For the Lord will come with fire to repay in his anger. Put these three Bible passages side by side, and the fire on Denali stops being just one strange event. It becomes the opening sign of stronger warnings to come. If fire can show up on ice, a place that seemed impossible to touch, then the question hanging in the air is, will it stop here? Or is this only the beginning of something much more powerful ahead? 2. Mysterious pillars of light in the snowy night. The night didn't start with light. It started with a strange, deep quiet. The snow fell so thick it swallowed every familiar sound. The forest stood completely still, as if all life had been drained from it. Even the sky above didn't move at all. In that long silence, a feeling of unease came first. Before anyone could see a thing, it felt like nature itself was holding its breath, waiting for some sign that didn't yet have a name. Then, out of that darkness, thin, pure ribbons of light began to appear. They didn't explode or dazzle, they just quietly drifted down from the sky. They stretched for miles, moving slowly through the freezing air, carrying soft shades of green mixed with pink and pale purple. They looked like light, yet not like any light we normally know. No sound came with them, just the gentle feeling that the line between sky and earth was being softly pierced. The place where people have seen this sits deep in the northern forest belt of Russia, where winter lasts a long time and snow and ice cover thousands of square miles. Local tour guides say these light pillars have been showing up more and more often in recent years. They draw brave photographers who don't mind the harsh conditions. The locals don't call it a show. They say it feels more like a moment you're quietly allowed to witness. If you're familiar with northern lights, you'll notice right away how different this is. These bands don't spread sideways across the sky. They fall straight down like perfectly placed pillars of light touching the ground. For a very long time, local legends have seen them as signs connected to something beyond the natural world. Not to scare people, but to gently remind us that the sky has never been empty. Revelation 15:1 says, I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them the wrath of God is finished. The words don't describe a shape, but they stress that certain signs only appear when one chapter is about to close. Of course, science explains it as energy particles from the sun hitting the upper atmosphere. That makes sense on paper. But it still leaves open the question, why is the light so unusually pure And why does it fall almost perfectly straight down? Something very rare in known natural patterns. Matthew 24-30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." This verse doesn't point to one exact thing, but it suggests the sky is where the first signals will be shown. Acts 2:19 also says, "I will show wonders in heaven above and signs on the earth below." When light and ground seem joined by invisible pillars, the question isn't really where they come from anymore. It's where they're trying to turn our eyes toward. And if these pillars of light truly are a sign, what exactly is waiting at the end of the quiet path they're shining on? 3. A mysterious doorway opens in the sky. A patch of dark, sharp-edged emptiness suddenly appeared in the clear blue sky above the desert. It looked like something had been sliced open by an invisible knife. Right there in the middle of the familiar sky, this perfect rectangle just hung still. No clouds covering it, no movement at all. It felt like some kind of doorway had quietly opened without any warning. Have you ever wondered if the sky is really just a silent dome, or if something more might be hiding behind it? This happened over the Mojave Desert in California, a huge, dry area of about 25,000 square miles. That place is famous for optical illusions that often trick people into seeing things that aren't really there. Local folks were the first to share photos. Then videos spread fast online, getting grouped with many other strange sky reports across America in recent years. What makes this one stand out is how clean and perfect the shape was, nothing like ordinary cloud distortions. Looking closely, the dark area cast no shadow, didn't disturb the air around it, and came with no strong wind or sound. It stayed for just a few minutes, then slowly faded away, leaving the sky looking untouched. Many people said it felt more like staring into a doorway than looking at a solid object, roughly hundreds of feet across, big enough to make you think way beyond everyday life. Genesis 28:12 says, "He had a dream of a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and angels of God going up and coming down on it." The idea of a path connecting two worlds shows up very early in the Bible, not just as decoration, but as a real part of how the unseen world works alongside ours. Online, people quickly split into different groups. Some say it's probably a rare cloud hole or a special light effect caused by the angle and atmosphere. Others feel a perfect rectangle like that can't just be random nature. After seeing it, which side do you lean toward? The scientific explanation, or something we don't have a name for yet? Revelation 4:1 says, "After this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven. And the voice I had first heard said, 'Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this.'" This verse isn't just about one man's vision. It hints that certain doors only appear when the time is right. The prophet Ezekiel 1:1 also records, "The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God." When you put these old descriptions next to a modern photo, that dark patch in the Mojave sky stops being just an optical trick. It starts feeling more like a code being quietly revealed. If it really was some kind of opening, the big question isn't how it appeared, but why right now? And when that door finally closed, had it finished what it came to do? Or is it just waiting for the next moment to open again? 4. 3 strange balls of light flying above the clouds. 3 bright lights suddenly shot through the thick clouds. They moved so fast that by the time your eyes caught them, they had already lined up. No alarm, no shaking, just 3 pure glowing orbs flying side by side, forming a sharp upside-down triangle against the silver-gray sky. The calm moment on the flight was completely interrupted. It happened while the plane was crossing the Andes at around 30,000 feet, where the clouds stack up like a huge wall. The crew and passengers all saw 3 lights moving at the same speed as the plane, keeping perfect, even spacing in a way that seemed almost impossible. Inside the cabin, everything went quiet. You could really feel a mix of excitement and uneasiness spreading through the silence. Those orbs didn't flash, didn't leave any trail, and made no sound at all. They sped up, then slowed down, like they were adjusting position according to some invisible plan. For a few short minutes, that upside-down triangle just hung there among the clouds. Then it slowly slid to the right and disappeared into thicker cloud layers, leaving the sky looking like nothing had ever happened. Matthew 24-31 says, "He will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other." The picture of messengers moving through the sky, so orderly and with clear purpose, made many people think what they just saw wasn't random. Similar reports of orb lights have come up more often in the Andes area, where earthquakes and magnetic changes are said to be strong. Some people think they could be military drones or rare light reflections in special weather. Still, three objects holding a steady formation and flying at the same speed as a regular passenger plane doesn't really match ordinary flying things. Revelation 14-6 says, "Then I saw another angel flying in midair, and he had the eternal gospel to proclaim to those who live on the earth." This verse doesn't talk much about shape. It focuses on the movement and the mission. That makes many wonder if what flew through those clouds was doing something similar. Another Bible passage, Daniel 7:10, describes a river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. The image of lights moving in perfect order brings to mind a group that doesn't belong to our world, yet works very close to it. Even though science keeps trying to explain it, the appearance of those three balls of light still leaves a big question. If they were messengers, the message came in total silence. And when that upside-down triangle formation comes back, are they searching for the souls who have been called, or marking those about to face judgment? 5. A strange tornado that looked like a giant snake. It was like a nightmare happening in broad daylight. The wind screamed, black clouds twisted tightly together, and the ground shook in wild, uneven bursts. Right in the middle of all that chaos, a deep, uneasy feeling hit fast. You could almost sense nature had lost control, like something had finally gone past its breaking point. This happened in Oklahoma's Tornado Alley, where folks are used to seeing twisters. But this time, the shape of it left everyone stunned. A long, thin, spinning column, stretching over a mile, whipping and curling violently, like the body of a huge snake, slithering down from the sky. It wasn't the usual funnel shape anymore. The tornado writhed and twisted in the air, swallowing fields and roads in seconds. Videos that spread online showed the strange shape stayed even after the bottom of the tornado started breaking up. The wind kept spinning, the body thin but very long, moving almost like a living thing. Many people said it gave them chills just watching, because it wasn't only raw destructive power, it was an image too clear and powerful to brush off. Revelation 12:9 says, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth." When that snake-like form appeared in the stormy sky, this Bible verse came up again and again, like a serious charge exposing the destroying force at work in our world. In the middle of that roaring twister, another side of Scripture came to mind. Job 38:1 tells us, "Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm." The tornado doesn't just bring ruin. It can also be the place where judgment is spoken, where people are forced to face how small and sinful they really are. Ezekiel 1-4 describes something similar. "I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming, with flashes of lightning and brilliant light around it. Whirlwind, fire, bright shining, and terror all mixed together. It paints a picture not just of a natural disaster, but of something being revealed and judged." Weather experts say this was probably a rare rope tornado, formed when strong wind shear meets very unstable air. Some believe climate change is making these kinds of long, unusual twister shapes show up more often. Still, science can only explain how it happens. It can't tell us why the shape looked so eerily like an ancient, frightening symbol. In that moment, the warning felt clearer than ever. This wasn't just wind and clouds. It was a sign reminding us that evil is being laid bare right in front of humanity. And as that snake twisted across the sky and earth, one haunting question still hangs there. Before the final hand steps in, how much more will get swept away in this storm? 6. Strange glowing orb in Brazil. It all started very quietly, almost without a sound, as night was about to settle over the misty hills of Chapada Diamantina. No loud bang, no confusion, just a soft purple light that appeared in the air, drifting slowly like a strange breath from the sky. In that moment, everything felt so calm that time itself seemed to pause, making space for something beyond our normal daily life. Chapada Diamantina sits about 3,000 feet high, surrounded by thick forest and very old rock formations. People have long known this place has strong magnetic forces and often sees strange lights that are hard to explain. Lately, locals say these purple glowing orbs have been showing up much more often, right when the whole world has been having unusual magnetic activity. The orb didn't just hang there. It moved slowly along the hillside, its purple light gently pulsing, never too bright, but clear enough to show the shape of the fog and the plants below. There was no noise, no rush of air, just the strong feeling that something was watching. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive, like a real presence. Videos people took show the orb moving with purpose, not randomly like ball lightning or regular plasma. It would turn gently, pause for a few seconds, then keep going, almost like it was looking for something on the ground. Many folks watched those clips again and again, not because they were scared, but because of a feeling they couldn't quite put into words. Curiosity mixed with something deeper. Psalm 18:10 comes to mind. He rode upon a cherub and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. The light stops being just a science thing and starts feeling like a picture of something holy, moving quietly but with clear purpose, gentle yet strong. The story of Elijah in 2 Kings 2:11 adds to that picture. Behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. In the Bible, fire and light don't always mean something bad. Sometimes they are the way God brings people closer to the holy. Revelation 21:23 describes another scene. The city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it. That slow purple light moving through the wild hills feels more like a gentle hint than a warning, a reminder that not every strange sign comes to judge us. Scientists think it might be natural plasma, formed by changes in the atmosphere's electric field. Still, that idea has trouble explaining the way it seems to surge and how long it stays around. Science can tell us how it might work, but the deeper meaning stays open. In the middle of all the talk, a quiet message slowly comes through. It's not about fear. It's an invitation to look inside ourselves, to think again about where we stand before the sacred. And as that purple orb finally melted into the night, one question still lingers. What is this light looking for? And is anyone ready to answer? 7. Mysterious cloud hole makes rain like a hole in the sky in Scotland. Scotland's sky is used to gray clouds and light drizzle, but this time nature did something so strange it made normal weather rules stop for a minute. Right in the thick, heavy clouds, a perfect round hole opened up. Rain poured straight down to the ground, like someone turned on an invisible faucet way up high. Why did the rain fall only in one spot, while everything around stayed bright and dry? This happened along the river Spey, a 107-mile river running through the Scottish Highlands. The clouds all around stayed still, but that cloud hole kept its perfect shape for hours. It kept pouring rain steadily onto a small area below. From far away, it looked just like a hole in the sky hanging there, totally separate from the normal weather. The way it happened left many people puzzled. First, a clear round gap appeared in the clouds. Then a steady column of rain fell straight down, no spreading, no moving with the wind. You can imagine standing there watching. feeling like all the usual weather rules were suddenly paused just to focus on one exact spot on the ground. Joel 2:23 gives this strange rain another meaning. He has given you the early rain in righteousness, and he makes the rain come down for you. In the Bible, rain isn't just weather. It's a sign of God's chosen, purposeful blessing, never random. A very different picture comes in Amos 4:7. I made it rain on one city, and withheld rain from another city. When rain falls exactly on one spot while all around stays dry, people remember this verse. It shows God's complete control over nature and people's lives. From a science view, many weather experts say this is a fall streak hole. That's when a plane flies through a cloud layer and makes ice crystals fall, creating local rain. But that explanation has trouble with why it lasted hours and stayed so perfectly on target. Science can describe how it starts, but still struggles with how steady and exact the whole thing was. Revelation 16:21 talks about a more serious side. Great hailstones came down from heaven upon men. When you put this next to promises of blessing rain, the rain from Scotland's cloud hole feels like a thin line between mercy and warning, between blessing and testing. Between these two ways of seeing it, one big question can't be avoided. Is this just a very rare weather coincidence? Or is it a sign that nature is being guided by a higher order? And if rain can be aimed at one exact spot, what might happen if that kind of choosing gets bigger in the days ahead? 8. Dozens of mysterious glowing orbs in the sky. Sunset spread over the California coast like a soft pink-purple silk blanket. The sun slipped behind the horizon, and the sky suddenly felt deeper than usual. In the thin clouds glowing with a pearly light, pure bright points appeared. No noise, no flashing, just quietly hanging there in the air. It was so beautiful, it could easily make you think this was just a dreamy, perfect sunset moment caught by chance, nothing more. As the video went on, the number of lights didn't stay at one or two. They grew into dozens, moving together smoothly, sometimes spreading apart, sometimes swirling like rings of light in the clouds. Each orb slipped in and out of view so gently, leaving no smoke trail, making no sound, moving so fluidly that it didn't match any regular device we know. If you watch closely, it no longer feels like a simple physical thing. You start to feel like you're seeing some invisible order at work right in front of you. Similar sightings have been reported before. Stories of rings of light in the sky where glowing objects move in perfect sync, then melt into the clouds like they were never there. They change height and direction in ways that don't follow normal paths. Nothing like flares or sky lanterns. That steady, clean movement gives the whole scene a kind of sacred feeling, both close and far away at the same time. Hebrews 1:14 says, "Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation?" When you put that question next to these quiet, moving lights, a lot of folks can't help thinking about invisible messengers, present but not showy, carrying out orders beyond what we normally understand. Of course, people also suggest regular explanations. Sky lanterns, drones, or some kind of light test often come up, but the large number and the way they swirl into the pink clouds don't quite fit those ideas perfectly. From another point of view, some believe these orbs carry a spiritual meaning, like quiet signs that something big is being prepared up above. Revelation 5:11 describes, "Then I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000. They encircled the throne." That picture echoes here, making the scene in front of us feel less alone and part of something much bigger, a huge presence that doesn't scare us, but signals an important moment. Psalm 104:4 says, "He makes winds his messengers, flames of fire his servants." The lights in the clouds, the evening breeze, and that groundless movement all quietly raise a question. What might those glowing points be carrying as full darkness falls and the sky closes up its secret? 9. a strange cloud path across the sky in Spain. The sky over the Tabernas Desert looked strangely solemn. The dry, barren land, about 108 square miles, lay completely still, as if waiting for a sign from above. The sun hung heavy in the middle of the sky, and right then, a perfectly straight cloud line appeared. It cut right across the heavens, pointing straight toward the bright glare. It didn't curve. It didn't fade. It just stayed there, like someone had drawn it on purpose. The empty landscape suddenly felt like the quiet path of a silent pilgrimage. The cloud stretched for miles. It started in the desert and reached straight toward the sun, like a giant hand pointing the way. There was no strong wind, no wild tearing like you usually see in high clouds, just one steady, solid line hanging in the air. The picture spread fast online, not because it was beautiful, but because it felt like something was looking right through you, as if the sky was trying to say something we weren't quite ready to name. Exodus 13:21 says, "The Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud by day to guide them, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light," so they could travel day and night. When you put those words next to this straight cloud path, the idea of being led doesn't feel like an old Bible story anymore. It feels like a pattern that's happening again, right on time, in just the right way. If you look closer, the cloud didn't drift around wildly. It held its direction steady, like it was anchored to some invisible point ahead. Have you ever wondered why signs like this show up in such dry, empty places? Places where people have no choice but to look up to find their way? It's in that very silence that the deeper meaning starts to open up, quietly but persistently. Numbers 9:15 tells us, "On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered it, the tent of the covenant law. From evening till morning, there was fire over it." The cloud didn't just cover. It marked God's presence. It separated the holy space from everything else in the world. In that same way, the cloud path over Tabernas wasn't just weather. It felt more like a line drawn between what's familiar and what's coming next. Scientific explanations popped up quickly: jet stream, special atmospheric conditions, things like that. But the absolute straightness and the sharp contrast with the rest of the sky made those answers feel a little too small to take away the uneasy feeling. Many Christians see it as a reminder: God's guidance never really stopped. We're just the ones who've gotten used to looking down for too long. Psalm 78:14 says, "In the daytime he led them with a cloud, and all night with a light of fire." If that same guidance is appearing again, the real question isn't where the cloud is pointing. The question is, who will stay awake enough to realize where they're actually standing on that path? In the end, does this straight cloud road lead us toward the light? Or does it simply show us how deep the desert runs inside our own hearts? 10. The familiar order of the old black forest seems to be shifting these days. Trees, which we always thought just stand still forever, aren't staying put anymore. Those huge trees, hundreds of feet tall, are no longer fixed in their old spots. It feels like some silent rule of nature has been quietly bent. When nature starts acting this strange, are we missing a pretty clear warning sign? The Black Forest covers about 2,320 square miles. Its ancient trees used to be symbols of strength and staying in one place. But lately, quite a few reports say some of the big ones have moved from their old markers, not fallen over, but slid short distances, almost like they crept along. Video footage shows the movement is real, slow, steady, and enough to give anyone who knows the forest's usual calm a real chill. Isaiah 55:12 says, "You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands." When you read that, while trees are actually moving, the picture jumps off the page. It makes you think nature really does have its own voice and movements. These shifts happen quietly, almost secretly, like something being rearranged without any fuss. Some biologists came to check it out. They suggested strong winds, root systems, or maybe just tricks of the eye. But the new positions don't line up with wind direction or slopes, so the science explanations only cover a very small piece of what's going on. Mark 11:13 tells us, "Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs." In the Bible, trees aren't just background. They're noticed, judged, and held accountable. It shows nature is always tied to moral standards and the results of not bearing fruit. As this strangeness grows, an eerie feeling starts to settle over the once peaceful forest. The purposeless movement makes people wonder if the trees are reacting to something way beyond normal understanding. Many Christians believe this isn't random liveliness. It's a serious reminder of coming judgment over the land and every created thing. Revelation 9:4 gives a heavy command. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. If trees are spared in that final judgment, maybe their unusual movement is a sign that the time of separation is getting very close. When nature stops standing still the way it always has, the silence of the old forest suddenly becomes a louder warning than any sound. Are the trees trying to get away from something? Or are they quietly gathering for an event beyond what any of us can imagine? When you put these 10 events side by side, an invisible thread starts to show up. It connects the fire of judgment, strange things happening in the sky, all the way to trees leaving places they've held for ages. Each one looks random on its own, but when you line them up, they form a rhythm that feels very familiar, one the old prophecies talked about long ago. They're no longer scattered pieces. They're coming together into a picture that's almost complete. Matthew 24:7-8 warned us, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." Looking back, what's happening isn't just weird weather or nature acting up. It feels more like the first hard contractions, signaling something much bigger is coming very soon. Now in 2026, reports from around the world show more and more northern lights appearing in places they don't belong, out-of-season storms, and skylights that science can't quite explain yet. When all these things stack up together, the idea that it's just coincidence starts to feel pretty weak. Revelation 16:14 reminds us, "They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for battle on the great day of God Almighty." The point isn't to be afraid. It's about the chance to wake up before the door closes. These signs aren't here for entertainment. They're meant to shake our hearts and call us back to the source of life. Joel 2:12 says it plainly, "Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning." In a quiet moment, we each face a clear choice: listen and turn around, or keep walking like we've seen nothing. Sometimes staying silent in the face of these signs is more frightening than the events themselves. Luke 21:28 encourages us, "When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." If these words touch something deep inside you, feel free to leave a prayer or share how you feel below. It's a simple way to answer the call that's going out everywhere. A like, a share, or following along can help others not miss these important reminders for a time like this. May peace cover you and your family, no matter how much the world keeps shaking. Amen.
Guys, do you see that?
What?
Do you feel like the world is slipping off its usual track? Time feels squeezed tight, the air has gotten heavy, and the future looks more blurry and uncertain than ever. Things that used to feel solid and steady are now shaking, leaving this uneasy feeling spreading everywhere. Fires are breaking out, right in the middle of cities. The sky is cracking open, strange lights hang in the air, whirlwinds are raging, and clouds shaped like death are showing up in plain sight. 10 different signs, but they're lining up one